Hello, I wanted to do a short little video up on how I basically study certain topics in the Bible, what I do to when I want to search for things and get more information on it. Um, I got I got a video here which shows my browser screen open, and basically I use my web browser quite extensively. I got actually a printed book of Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, and I got the New International Bible I own. I got the New King James Version Bible I own. I own the King James Version itself. I own a lot of these books, but I've had the websites are much faster. So what do I do if I'm given a challenge or a topic I need to research? What do I do to go about looking something up? And just to give an example, when I was asked, or I'll be asked about going to heaven when you die, something like that, and a verse that I got memorized now is John 3:13, and I'm gonna bring up Bible Gateway, which is what I use. You'll see it up here, BibleGateway.com. I use it a lot, bookmark it. I actually got a whole page. I'll close that down. A whole page of stuff I use. Firefox in their browser. I'll go to Bible Gateway. Brings right up, and I'll bring up John 3:13. And I like using the NIV, but you can use anything. It's got a huge long list of Bibles you can use search in, and then just about any language as well. You generally use NIV or the New King James Version, which is right here, or even the King James Version for that matter. I have used once in a while. The Common English Bible is also not a good version. So if I look up verse here, you'll see no one has ever gone up to heaven except the one that came from heaven. And people will then usually, the most common response I get to that is that, well, what about Enoch and Elijah? They went to heaven. God took them up to heaven. And that's a valid argument, valid thing to bring up, because you hear that a lot. If you're interested in the truth of God and you want to know the truth, then that should bother you. The fact that Enoch and Elijah going to heaven, and then thousands of years literally later, Jesus Christ saying no man or no one has ever gone into heaven, that should bother you if you like the truth. You cannot explain John 3:13 away. I've heard people tell me it's I've taken it out of context. Well, there's no other way to understand it. No matter what the context is, and actually in context it's even worse for people who believe in it, but no matter what the context is, this is saying no one, so nobody, no human being, has ever, so in the history of mankind, no one has ever gone into heaven, went to heaven, except the one who came from heaven, the Son of Man, Jesus. Jesus actually came from heaven. He was he's the Lord of the Old Testament. Whenever you hear about God or the Lord talking to somebody in the Old Testament, that's the same one that became Jesus. And as a matter of fact, when you think about it, the same one that took Enoch and Elijah allegedly to heaven is the same one who's thousands of years later is saying no man's ever went to heaven. So that should actually really bug you. Well, the answer to that is you can do a quick search. Okay, the first one we hear about is Enoch. So let's go back and actually read the story. We'll go back and we'll just do a quick search here. The way I'll do it, I'll either go in Bible Gateway, or sometimes I'll actually go to Google or Bing search and I'll type in verse. But that can bring up some sketchy websites and that. So this is better. Anyway, we'll just go Enoch. We'll just type Enoch. And this will show us all the verses that have Enoch in it. We'll go back to the earliest one and we'll see Cain made love to his wife. It talks about it when Enoch was born. And you go down here a little ways. It takes a bit of a few verses to scroll down through. There you go. He walked faithful to God and was no more. So this is where he was taken, right here in Genesis 5:24. So we'll jump there. So here we read, Enoch walked faithfully with God, and he was no more because God took him away. That's it. It doesn't say, where in here does it say God where God took him. So what I'll do here, I'll actually go back maybe 2 verses back, and I'll go dash, and that was 24, so we'll go to 26. I'll go 2 verses before and 2 verses after to get. I'm going to go after he became the father. Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years, and sons and daughters altogether. He tells you his deeds. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. That's it. It doesn't tell you anything more. Where did God take him? Where does it say God took him to heaven? You assume it. You assume he took him to heaven, but nowhere does it say he took him to heaven. Now, the fact that the same God that took him away is the one that became Jesus Christ, and he said no man's ever went to heaven. So we know two things. We know no man's ever went to heaven, and we know Enoch was taken away. So therefore, if we try to assume where he went, we cannot assume it's heaven, because Jesus said no one's ever went there, and thousands of years later. And if he took Enoch to heaven, that statement would be false, and yet he's the one who took him. So the truth of the matter is, we don't know where he took him. I have my own ideas, my own theories based on several ideas, but they're just my ideas and they're not biblical, so I won't even mention them. Well, maybe I'll mention them. I think it's very possible that he could have taken him instantly from where he was into the future, but I think that's a possibility. But the fact of the matter is, we just don't know where he took him. We know where he didn't take him. He didn't take him to heaven, because Jesus said no one's ever went to heaven. So was Enoch taken to heaven? No. Where was he taken? We don't know. God doesn't tell us anything unless it's important for us to know it. And obviously it wasn't important for us to know it. It isn't important for us to know it. It is important for us to realize that he didn't go there, because otherwise you got a contradiction. But using logic and just common sense, if Jesus said thousands of years later, if the same one that was God here that took him tells us he didn't take him to heaven, because nobody's ever been to heaven, then that's what we need to believe. Not some fairy tale that some minister behind a pulpit tells you that isn't backed up in God's word. It isn't. You can't find it in here. It's nowhere in here. So the other one is that you hear about it is Elijah. Now that's a different case. That one actually does actually say it took him to heaven. Let's see. We'll go Elijah, and then we'll think Elijah taken up to heaven. So there we go. And remember, this is just a translator's commentary. This is not what the Bible. This is not necessarily what the verses say, but we'll go anyway. So 2 Kings 2, when the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven. Well, there we go. It does seem to say that, doesn't it? Well, now, if this is true, then we have a clear contradiction in the Bible. Jesus said no man's went there, and then in 2 Kings, the same person that became Jesus actually took Elijah, was about to take Elijah up, took Elijah up to heaven, whatever. So, then we got to think, the only explanation is we got to look up what the original Hebrew was in this case to find out what was written, because this is a translation, remember, the Bible was not written in English. Most of the Old Testament, except for Daniel, was written in Hebrew. Daniel was a special case. It was written. The whole book of Daniel was written in Aramaic, because they're captive in Babylon at the time. So we'll go 2 Kings 2. So how do we look this up and check up the original Hebrew? Well, there's another great website I go to. I'll bring up my little things here. And right up here, Blue Letter Bible. You can see the address up top, blueletterbible.org, and I already got it set to go to the study page. You can use whatever other translation. I prefer actually to use the King James version on here, and the reason why is because most of the study things that helps are written. Were all written references and whatnot. You'll see. Were mostly written using the King James version, so you'll get more information that way. The King James version differs obviously from the NIV, but they're pretty much the same with a few minor exceptions. Just one's clear, modern, and more modern than the other. Anyway, we're looking for 2 Kings 2, so we'll type in 2 Kings 2. And that'll bring it up here. There's 2 Kings 2. And Elijah said unto Elisha, right here, 2 Kings 1. And it came to pass when the Lord would take Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind. So if you click on this right here, you see my little hand I'm pointing at the screen here. Like you can see me pointing. And it'll bring you up. There's the original. There's what the Bible was originally written in the Old Testament, right there. See this? That's what it was written in. That's Hebrew, not English, not even Old English. Hebrew, and actually Hebrew, if you look, it goes from right to left. It doesn't go right left to right even. Even goes in different directions. But anyway, if you scroll down, you'll see here's the English words here, or phrases, and this will give you Strong's Concordance, which gives you a reference to the word, and this will give you the original Hebrew lettering and the transliteration, which gives you the English way of pronouncing the Hebrew and what the word is. And you can even click here and it'll even play it for you, and it'll give you an audio output, which is kind of neat. So if it'll tell you each word in that verse. So up into heaven, there's heaven. So here's the word heaven, Shamayim. There's an important thing to remember about Hebrew. When you see this I am on the end, that means it's the word is a plural word, meaning more than one. Very important to remember. So this on this side it says into heaven singular. So already it's it's already a bit of a mistranslation, I feel. It should be into the heavens. But anyway, if you click here, this will take us to the entry for that word that explains it, Shamayim, and because you're the key how to pronounce it. And then we go down, it tells you what it is, from an unused root, meaning to be lofty, and it'll tell you how many times it's used. In the King James Version, it's translated to heaven as 398 times. It's actually translated as air 21 times, and even astrologers figure that one out. One time, in biblical uses, it refers to the heavens, sky, meaning the sky above, visible heavens. Notice, well, you can see the sky above, the stars, or the space here. There was the abode of the stars, the visible universe, and of course, where God resides. And here you get Strong's definition, Shamayim, dual use of an unused singular, of an unused singular, Shamay. The yim part makes it plural, makes it dual use. So it's being plural, heavens. And it means to be lofty, the sky, aloft, up in the air, kind of thing, astrologer, up in the heavens. It's plural when it has the im on the end, remember? And so it's talking about the sky, and if you keep scrolling, it'll show you different verses where it's been used as well. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and they called the firmament heaven. The firmament is the sky above our head, and the evening. And the King James Version honestly drives me nuts because it uses heaven a lot. I mean, if we scroll down, Genesis 1:20, okay. Let the waters bring forth abundantly every moving creature that has life, and the fowl. A fowl is a bird, and the NIV says bird. We'll go to Genesis 1:20. We'll go to Genesis 1:20 in the NIV. And here we got, and God so that the water teem with living creatures, and that the birds fly above this earth across the vault of the sky. There's Shemaim right there. And we go here they go across. Let the birds fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Birds flying in heaven. Birds are flying in the sky. I think the Old English heaven meant anything up above us. The sky, space, and where God resides. Well, if you got a bird flying there, it's not flying around. This is talking about the sky where the clouds are. And it's down here. Actually, in 126, they actually translated it as air instead of heaven for a change. And here it's fowl of the air. Take a fowl that fly in heaven. Here we got the fowl birds of the air. And this tells you it's the exact same word. That's the reference right there. So that's Shemaim again. And here again, 128, fowl of the air. Fowl of the air. Thus the heavens. Thus, and if we translate the skies or heavens, thus the skies and the earth were finished. Well, that makes more sense. And you'll keep seeing that over and over again. I'll show you all the different spots. And so, how do you answer that question if Elijah was taken up to heaven where Jesus came from? Then we have a contradiction. Either that or Jesus is a liar, and you don't want to call him that. I don't even like even saying it in an audio like this because it's, he's not a liar. God is not a liar. God is only Satan is a liar. So he's not a liar. So he said no man's went to heaven. So therefore, when we read about Elijah being taken up into the heavens, and we know there's the heavens refer to the sky, where the clouds, space, and where God resides. Well, you know what? It isn't where God resides because of what John 3:13 says. That only leads the sky. Elijah was taken up into the sky. Well, where was he taken then? That's ridiculous. He was taken up to the sky. Was he floating on a cloud? Neil, you're stupid. But here, there's something else. There's more verses that mention Elijah after this. So, and if we look on the right side, it tells us all the Old Testament places he's mentioned. 2 Chronicles, very interesting verse here. Okay, let me go back a bit here. I want to mention one other thing. Now, there is a spot here. A verse that mentions who was king at the time. There was a king at the time. Oh, sorry, it's in there. I'm in the wrong. It's in the book just before this, 2 Kings 1, just before this. Now, if we go down here, we'll see. And the son. There's I'm looking for the name of a king here, and you'll see why in a minute. 2. There was a king that was a king in the second. Oh, so that's what we're looking for. Second. Sorry. Well, this is good. You can see exactly how I do it. Because Uzziah had no son. Jehoram succeeded him as king in the second year. The second year of Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. So when Jehoram, in the second year of Jehoram's reign as king of Judah, there was 2 kings, by the way. There was a king of Judah, the Jews, and there was a king of Israel. The Jews and Israel were 2 separate nations. That's a whole other subject, but this is kind of an interesting. It can get a bit confusing otherwise, because there was a king of Israel and there was a king of Judah, and this was Jehoram, king of Judah. During his second year, this all happened. Okay, so Jehoram was king of Judah. This is very important. Was in his second year of ruling over Judah when Elijah was taken up into heaven. Okay? Very important. You just seen it now. Now we'll do another quick look on Elijah again. And we'll jump down to 2 Chronicles here, because that's much later. And here we see Jehoram, king of Judah, remember, who was king of Judah. He was in his second year of ruling when Elijah was taken up into the heavens, or up into the sky. Jehoram received a letter from Elijah the prophet. When you could say, well, Elijah could have sent him that letter just sometime before, during his second year of rule. And so that would then he was taken up into heaven, and so this could have happened, just because it's in a different book, right? And that's actually exactly what I thought. I was thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong about this, but this is the letter from Elijah is giving Jehoram a warning, because he had gotten Jerusalem worshiping all these false gods and idols and such, that he would come to a horrible death. And so the Lord, the Lord aroused, right around that time, he sent him this letter saying he was going to die. And then shortly after he got the letter, he was attacked and he died, just as he said. But read how long Jehoram reigned. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 8 years. So this was the 8th year of his reign that he died. Okay, Elijah was taken up to the sky when Jehoram had only been ruling for 2 years. Here, in his last year of his reign, he gets a letter from Elijah, who was taken up to the sky 6 years earlier. So this shows you that proof positive. Elijah was somewhere on the earth. God just took him away into retirement, I would guess. Again, that's guessing on my part. I can't tell you where he went because the Bible doesn't tell you where he went. But the Bible does tell you he sent him a letter. Now, unless you think he's writing letters in heaven, you know, and obviously you had to be one other person that knew where he was taken to, somebody that delivered the letter. But Jehoram received a letter during the last year, the 8th year of his reign, from Elijah. Elijah was taken up into the sky. In the earlier verse, we know now it was the sky. He was not in heaven because he's still writing letters 6 years later. But he's given a break. Elisha took over for Elijah. Elijah is now probably resting out. Probably God's given him rest for the final years of his life. He's resting somewhere, but he's still being inspired by God to write a letter, and that's easy enough to do. You don't have to travel around. You write a letter, get somebody to send it out for you, and the person who probably delivered was under orders not to reveal where Elijah was, because it was never revealed where he was. So here we go. We got proof Elijah wasn't taken up to heaven. It was taken. The word that says heaven means the sky or space or where God is. Jesus Christ, over 2,000 years later, in John 3:13 says, "No one's ever gone to heaven." Enoch, we already shown, was not taken to heaven. We weren't told where he was taken, but we're told several thousand years later, by the one who took him, that he didn't go to heaven. So we know he didn't go to heaven. We don't know where he went. God doesn't want us to know where he went. Nobody knows where he went. We'll find out when Christ returns, won't we? And again, Elijah, it says he took him up to heaven, but the word heaven was the same word. The same word translated heaven is the same word translated as where the birds fly, in the sky. And then we find out 6 years later, Elijah wrote a letter to the exact same king that was ruling 6 years earlier when he was taken. So we know where he was taken. He was taken someplace on earth. No, we don't know exactly where he was taken, but we know where he wasn't taken. He wasn't taken to heaven because the one that took him said so thousands of years later. He was taken up into the sky. Anyway, this gives you an idea of how I go about things. These are some great tools you can use to discover all these truths. These are just a few of them. I got a few other little things I'll use once in a while, a little less frequently. The .NET Net Bible is called, and netbible.org has some great stuff you can look up. Here's a genealogy of Jesus Christ right here, the birth of Jesus Christ. You can look up different verses, and on the right side there are various commentaries and notes, which can be interesting to read from people who are more scholarly. It doesn't mean everything they say is 100% right, but there's some really good stuff on this page. Other pages, see Scripture for All, and I think that's a recent one I just added. This has an actual Greek and Hebrew interlinear, so you can look up original Greek and Hebrew from the original, what the original wordings were in here as well. I don't use it as much because I find the Blue Letter Bible does a great job of getting all that stuff for me. So there's a lot of stuff out here. This is Codex Sinaiticus. This is another good source I will use sometimes. This is the oldest manuscripts of the Bible or anywhere. These are the ones that NIV and other more modern translations actually most were taken from. And there's fewer of these documents available, but they are older than the same manuscripts which King James Version and such like that were translated from. Here we go. I can go John chapter 3, and then I can go John 13. And this actually shows you an actual photograph of the pages. This is interesting to look at. If you look, there's the original. This is what the original Bible looked like when it was written. Right here. You'll notice several things. There's no commas. There's no periods. There's no chapters. There's not even space in between the words. I don't even know how people figured out which word was which, to be honest. And it's written. This is John, so this is Greek. And that's written. No chapters, no verses, not even punctuation. That's important to understand too when you're doing your research. Sometimes you'll get verses, and you might get a different translation that has the punctuation in a different spot. This isn't somebody mistranslating or trying to deceive you. This because there's no punctuation in the original, and they might be right. Somebody else might be right. Depends on the context when you're reading it and the meaning and everything else. It's important to keep these things in mind. If I scroll down here, it'll tell me the the wording, the original words here for John 3:13, and then down in the window below, you'll see, you can scroll down, you can see a translation of that, and it says the same thing. No one has ever ascended into heaven except he that came down from heaven, the Son of Man who is in heaven. So, anyhow, I hope this helps some people figure some things out. Some other things I will do sometimes when I'm searching, I'll go to I'll go to Google here, for example, and the thing I like to do is I'm looking up a verse, say I don't know, Elijah went to heaven, for example. I'll type in verse, and I'll go Elijah taken to, and there we go, heaven. And then you'll get a bunch of, you'll get this here, a bunch of stuff here, scroll down, and it'll give you the verse. I could have found out the verse where it says that quickly right here, and I could have clicked on here, or I could have just, what I'll often do is I'll go, like, because oftentimes this will have it on some other site rather than the one I'm on. So I'll go just to the left here, and I'll highlight, if I can, highlight 2 Kings 2, Control C on my keyboard, or edit and copy. And then I can go up here, because this is what I prefer, and I go up here and I Control V, or you go or if you go edit, paste, and that'll paste it back in there, and then you can just press enter, select your favorite translation, and go to town, and we could have started reading it there. So, but I will use this a lot. I use this a lot to find stuff if somebody's wondering about, well, what about where does it say that and Satan being thrown into hell, for example, was a conversation earlier. What's verse Satan thrown into a lake of fire, for example. And then here, Revelation 20:10. So there, I got the verse right here, but it's on Bible Hub, and I don't like using Bible Hub. So I got Revelation 20:10. I got a good memory. So I'll go Revelation 20:10. And there's our verse. And then again, I can, like as before, I can go up here and I can go to Revelation 20. I just use short form, and there's a small window. And there's a Revelation 20:10. And again, I could do like I before. I can look over if I want to look up our words. The devil is an interesting one. What does it refer to? Diabolos. You know, they can tell you devil, false accuser, slanderer. The word actually means what person. A devil is a person who's prone to slander. Slanderers accuses people falsely. So it doesn't necessarily mean a demon, because Jesus actually said when he's talking about Judas who would betray him, he didn't mention him, but he mentioned to his apostles that one of you is a devil. Judas Iscariot wasn't literally a demon. He was a false accuser. He was a slanderer. He was a deceiver. Also means that someone who's deceptive. Demons are unclean and deceptive, but it also can refer to people. So you can learn that by searching these things. It's kind of interesting. And it'll again show you other verses where it has it. Anyhow, this is already getting pretty long probably. But I just wanted to, been wanting to put together a little video to give you just a kind of a basic idea of some of the ways I'll do some of my own searching and find this information out. And of course, I'll go way in depth, different words, different verses. If I have to, I use Blue Letter Bible a lot to dig right into the meanings of the verses and the whole 9 yards. And I'll just if you do this enough, you can really start getting a great understanding of it if you love the truth. And it helps also, of course, when you're doing your searches, pray to God for wisdom to help you understand what you're searching for and to help you search. And He will give you the wisdom and the understanding needed, and you'll find that you'll be able to find out information about whatever topic you're looking for. You don't need other men standing as some preacher in a pulpit teaching you lies to learn the truth. You don't need a video on YouTube to learn. You can go on here, you can search this stuff, read it right from God's own words, His own word, right from the mouth of the Creator, who gave you this information. You can learn this, search for it. You can get ideas. I'll go on Google or YouTube and I'll watch videos the odd time, not very often because there's a lot of false prophets out there. But I will listen to some of them and get some of their ideas, and then I'll take it with a grain of salt. Then I'll go do some searching like this. And when you remember on any topic of the Bible, you can't just pull one verse out and use it to support a doctrine. Any doctrine that teaches you anything about God's Word, it has to support all verses that talk about that subject. If you only got one verse that seems to support it, but you got a whole pile of verses that say the opposite, well then the doctrine is false. It has to support all, like Jesus doing away with the law doctrine. And that you can go searching through where Jesus tells a man specifically, if you want to enter into life, to keep the commandments. So that contradicts that idea. So the idea is wrong. It's wrong. You got to get used to being welcome correction, because you want to learn the truth. You don't want to hold on to lies, because that won't help you. So you want to welcome correction. You want to go searching. Keep your mind open for the truth. If you see something contradicts, don't disbelieve the Bible. Don't disbelieve the verse that somebody else quotes. Don't blame the person that quotes the verse to you. Believe what the Bible says and throw away the false doctrines and just start searching, and you'll be amazed what you'll learn. It's fascinating. It really is once you get right into it. I love it. Anyway, I hope this helps somebody out there. I hope I just wasted my time. God bless. Hopefully this will help. Goodbye.